So, hello, dear friends. Uh, hope you are all fine in this difficult situation of pandemic COVID-19. So let's start without wasting time. Let's start the topic of today's talk, and which is a very important part of the endocrine system. That is hypothalamus and pituitary gland. Starting with the learning objectives. So, after attending today's lecture, you will be able to explain the interrelationship of the anatomy and functions of hypothalamus and pituitary gland. Right, these are two major glands that controls overall endocrine function in our body. Secondly, you will be able to identify two hormones released from the posterior pituitary gland with the target cells and the principal actions. And finally, you will be able to identify seven hormones produced by anterior pituitary gland, the target cells, the principal actions, and the regulation by hypothalamus. Okay, so let's start with the first one, that is hypothalamus. So, going for the details of anatomy of hypothalamus. So, location, definitely you all know that it is located in the part of brain which you call as a forebrain. You know that there are three regions of the brain: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain, right? And forebrain contains again three regions. Larger part is called as a cerebrum. Second part, which is within the cerebrum, that is diencephalon part, and a very small part is called as the olfactory lobe. So in this diencephalon region, right, di that means it is encephalon, that means within the cerebrum, right? Cephalo refers to brain. So within the brain region, that is within the cerebrum region, that is the diencephalon. So there are three parts of diencephalon again: epithalamus, thalamus, and this is epithalamus, this is thalamus, and here just anterior and inferior to this thalamus, right? That is hypothalamus, right? So this is a location again. This is the part of forebrain, right? This also is a part of forebrain. So this all here there is a diencephalon. In diencephalon, just beneath the thalamus, here is the size of an almond-shaped structure, which you refer as an hypothalamus. Okay, so very easy from this diagram. Now you are able to understand what is the location of the hypothalamus. Size, definitely we have discussed that it is the size of an almond. Right. Moving towards the internal structure. Now this structure is very important because this is a major link between nervous system and endocrine system. You know that most of the hormones in our body, they are under control of the pituitary hormones. Okay, so pituitary gland is a master gland which controls all other endocrine organs. But then this master also has one more master, and that is the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus in that sense is master of master. Right. Now you must be thinking that if pituitary is, or say for example, if other endocrine glands are under control of pituitary and pituitary is under control of the hypothalamus, then how do hypothalamus is able to make or perceive these changes? So in that case, the answer is definitely here. The stimulus or impulses which are received from different parts of the brain in the hypothalamus, that are converted into a endocrine function, and that is release of releasing hormone and inhibitory hormone, right? RH and IH, and this RH and IH are able to control the secretions from the pituitary gland, right? That is how the hypothalamus is able to make these functions happen. Now moving towards the main region of the hypothalamus, this is definitely not part of the endocrine system, but just going through the basics of the details of hypothalamus with respect to its neuronal structure. So four main regions, and they do contain a dozen of nuclei or more nuclei also. Now you should have a question that what do I mean by nuclei? So nuclei is actually a plural word, right? Singular is nucleus, and nucleus refers to group of neurons. Now again, some of you will say that, sir, group of neuron is not nucleus, it is called as a ganglion. You are right, it is also referred as ganglion, but when it is outside the CNS. So two parts, right? If a group of neuron is present outside the CNS, it is referred as a ganglion. And if this group of neuron is within the CNS, that is in brain and spinal cord, we call it as a nucleus. If more than one nucleus, definitely we'll call it as a nuclei, right? So this nuclei, very important nuclei, are present in 4 regions. Say for example, first one is mammillary region, so called because it resembles the you can say mammary glands, right? Breast, the shape is resembling like that. Second is a tuberal region. Tuberal region is a very important because it is having an anatomical connection with a structure that is called as the infundibulum. Infundibulum is a stalk-like structure which connects hypothalamus with the pituitary gland. Third and very important one is a supraoptic region, and this is the major source, right, where, or you can say that is the area where most of these nuclei are located, right? So nuclei, say for example, a paraventricular nucleus, supraoptic nucleus, right? These are very important structures, right? Nuclei, and the hormones, right, are released from this region, right? What we call as the neurosecretory region is present in this part, right? Preoptic region also is considered as a part of the hypothalamus, right? So these are 4 regions. So without wasting time, moving towards the physiology, it has both, as we discussed, that it is having both neural and endocrine function, and that is the reason why we don't consider hypothalamus as a primary endocrine gland. What is primary endocrine gland? Primary endocrine gland or major endocrine glands are the one which are having exclusive function of hormonal synthesis and release. They don't have any other function in the body. Say for example, pituitary, exclusively an endocrine gland. Thyroid gland, exclusively or a primary endocrine gland, right? Likewise you can consider, but definitely hypothalamus is having a very important neural functions also. So let's revise first the neural function, and then we will move to the endocrine function, right? So first one is the control of the autonomic nervous system, which is a very important function. So the impulse, you can say control regulation regarding the heart rate, the blood pressure, glandular secretion of the stomach and intestine, the movements of the gastrointestinal tract, sympathetic output in definitely that is given to the adrenal medulla, right? So these all are under the control of hypothalamus. So very important function, right? Involuntary behavior is under control of, you can say that this hypothalamus. Now, along with a structure which is called as a limbic system, right? A complex structure that is called as the limbic system. Limbic actually means border, right? Those regions which are located on the border of cortex, right? Your cerebrum, right? So this cerebral cortex border, right? These regions, right? They form a complex structure that is called as the limbic system, and that limbic system along with hypothalamus is involved in regulation of emotional and behavioral pattern, right? You can also say that hypothalamus is a part of limbic system, and that also is a true. Thirdly, hypothalamus have the nuclei which controls eating, so that's some feeding nuclei, right? So for eating, this the urge is being developed from the hypothalamus. Even the satiety centers, right? When you have abdominal fullness, then also it is the hypothalamus which gives the message, right, of abdominal fullness, right? So that regulation is being done by hypothalamus. Drinking, right? So that also is regulated by hypothalamus. You also know that fluid and electrolyte balance is maintained by these receptors which are present in the hypothalamus, that you call as the osmoreceptors, right? We are strict osmoregulators, and in that sense the plasma osmolyte level, right, is strictly maintained at 300 milliosmol per liter, and that is because these osmoreceptors are able to sense that the osmotic pressure that is present in the body fluids, that is blood. So through kidney, definitely this electrolyte balance, fluid balance is regulated, but ultimate control is with the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus have a very important center which we call as a thermostat, and that is controlling your body temperature, right? So 37.4 degrees Celsius, that is controlled by your hypothalamus, and that is thermostat. Finally, you also have maintenance of circadian rhythms. Circadian rhythms are the cyclic changes that occurs within a 24 hours, right? Circa, that is you can say 20, 24, right? And die means it goes away. So the rhythms which dies within 24 hours, that is called as a circadian rhythm. Say for example, sleep cycle. So state of consciousness, circadian rhythm, they are also regulated by this hypothalamus. Definitely, this circadian rhythm definitely occurs under the influence of pineal gland by a release of a hormone which is called as a melatonin. But then the message to the pineal gland is delivered through hypothalamus. That is how we are saying that it is regulating. So these are all neural function. And now we are coming to our point, that is endocrine function. So they are having some special type of neurons which is having neurosecretory cells, and these neurosecretory cells, they releases chemicals which we call as a neurohormones. Now here I would like to make a very important difference between hormones and neurohormones, right? So what is hormone? Hormone is released by a glandular structure, right? Glands are actually modified epithelial tissue, and this modified epithelial tissue, right, once been called as a gland, if they are releasing without duct, they are releasing chemicals in the body fluids which we call as a hormones, right? So this is endocrine gland and this is hormone. Hormone normally they can act the cells, target cells which are near to the origin source, or it could be normally, which is what happened, right, that it acts at distant places, right? But only one criteria is there, that there should be a receptor, right? So all cells which are having receptors, they will give you response. Cells which are not having receptors, definitely there you will not get responses. So hormones circulate in whole body, but the cells with the receptors only will produce a response. I will give you a simple example for understanding this. Say for example, I am delivering this lecture to you because you are having some basics of biology from your 12th science, right? That's why you are able to understand this. So you have receptors, that's why you are able to produce the response of the hormones that are delivered by me through video lecture, fine. But say for example, if a student of commerce or maybe arts, if he is visualizing my lecture, if he is checking my lecture, he will not be able to understand. Why? Because he's not having that basic, he or she is not having the receptor, so definitely there will be no response in that person, right? So this is hormone. But then what is the neurohormone? Here you can just see that there is a neurosecretory cell which is a modified neuron which is releasing the chemical, right? Now normally the chemical which are released from neurons, they are referred as a neurotransmitters. But then just again to recall you, neurotransmitters are released locally in response to the neuronal excitation, so their effect is also local. But here the chemical which is released from the neuron is released in the bloodstream, and it is just like hormone, the behavior you are able to check. But here these chemicals, they are not released by the gland, they are released by neurosecretory cell, and that's why these are referred as a neurohormones. I hope now it is clear what is difference between hormone, neurotransmitter and neurohormone. This is a neurohormone. Neurotransmitter, the diagram that I have not shown here, right? Maybe you can check very simple diagram in my previous lectures, fine. So this is hormone, this is a neurohormone, right? Say for example, oxytocin, vasopressin, these are RH, IH, these are all because of that neurohormones that you can consider. So these are the list of neurohormones. Definitely, as I told you, the two major group of hormones, neurohormones released from the hypothalamus are RH and IH. Okay, so RH refers to releasing hormone. Why they are called as a releasing hormone? Because once they are released from the hypothalamus, they will go to anterior pituitary gland, and anterior pituitary gland, they will stimulate the release of the counter hormone which is associated with their function, right? Say for example, first one, that is growth hormone releasing hormone. So this hormone once released through the portal, hypophyseal portal circulation, which we'll definitely understand in the next slides. So once it is going to the anterior pituitary gland, now it will stimulate a hormone of the anterior pituitary gland which is called as a growth hormone, right? So because it is positively giving a message that yes, you now have to release, growth hormone will be stimulated for the release, that's why it is referred as a growth hormone releasing hormone, right? You can also call it as a somatocrine, right? Because somato soma refers to body, right? So growth hormone is also called as a the hormone which stimulates the body growth, and crinin, right? IN refers to peptide. Remember that all these neurohormones released from the hypothalamus, they are either protein, peptide, or a glycoprotein. Okay, so this IN refers to protein, right? Say for example, pepsin is a protein. Similarly, somatochrinin is a protein. So protein, crine, that means release, right? Endocrine, so you call it as a release. So a protein which releases this hormone, that is your growth hormone, right, which is responsible for the development of somatic growth, body cell growth, right, that is growth hormone. So GHRH is also referred as a somatochrinin. Second one is a GnRH, that is gonadotrophin releasing hormone. Definitely once it is released, it will stimulate the release of gonadotrophin from the anterior pituitary, right. Gonadotrophins are is actually a name of two hormones in combination, that is FSH and LH, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, right. These two are combinedly referred as gonadotrophins, and gonadotrophin are released under the influence of GnRH. Third one is CRH, so that is corticotrophin releasing hormone. So this hormone, they induces release of corticotrophin, and corticotrophin, as you just are going through this word, right, somatotrophin, which is a name of a growth hormone, gonadotrophin, that is FSH and LH. Similarly, corticotrophin, which is ACTH, adrenocorticotrophic hormone. Remember that all of these hormones which are from anterior pituitary, they do have a prefix, sorry, suffix, that is trophin, right. Trophin, that means because they are tropic in nature. Tropic in the sense they do stimulate one more endocrine gland. Say for example, ACTH, if released, it will stimulate further adrenal cortex. Gonadotrophin, once released, definitely FSH and LH both will stimulate gonads to release one more set of an hormone. Okay, so that's why anterior pituitary hormones are always suffixed by trophin. Okay, because they are tropic in nature. Fine. So one which is controlling ACTH, that is corticotrophin. That's why ACTH or corticotrophin releasing hormone. Fourth one is prolactin releasing hormone, right, which will stimulate the release of prolactin from the anterior pituitary. And fifth one is a thyrotrophin releasing hormone, which stimulates thyrotrophin, that is nothing but a TSH, right, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. So these are five you can say that releasing hormone which controls or which stimulates the release of seven different anterior pituitary hormone, right. Here stimulates only one, that is growth hormone. Fine. Here it stimulates two, that is FSH and LH. Here it stimulates two, actually speaking three, but right now we'll discuss two, that is ACTH, and second is endorphins. Okay, endorphins we will check again in the later slides. This definitely releases prolactin, and this releases thyrotrophin, right. I hope it is clear. Now for stimulation of release, you definitely have RH, that is releasing for all anterior pituitary hormones, but only for few hormones we also have an inhibiting hormone, right. So inhibiting hormone is only for two, that is for growth hormone, and second is for the prolactin. These two hormones, they can be inhibited by the hypothalamic release of the IH hormones. So say for example, if GHIH is released, it will inhibit the release of growth hormone, because static, that means to inhibit or to stop, right. So here it is stopping the release of somatostat, you can say crinin, right. So sorry, it is you can say making a difference. It is the one which is responsible for the somatic growth, right. So that is somatostatin. IN is peptide, right. Sorry for the interruption, right. So this is peptide. Static means stop, and here it is somato refers to the body cells, right. So that is again growth hormone. So once released, it will definitely inhibit the release of growth hormone. So that's why somatostatin. This somatostatin is the one is same what we discussed in case of pancreatic delta cells, right. That is the same also released from the you can say the hypothalamus. Fine. Also prolactin is can be inhibited by a release of prolactin inhibitory hormone, right. This, if you are able to recall, this is nothing but this is a very important neurotransmitter in brain also, prolactin inhibitory hormone is nothing but it is actually dopamine, right, which is a very important neurotransmitter, as well as it is acting as a hormonal function in this case, right, working as an IH. Now you will be having a question that for release, definitely there are so many hormones are there, but for inhibition you have just two you can say that IH hormones, right? So what about the inhibition of other hormones? So remember that there is an always negative feedback loop which is working for inhibition of release of all of these hormones. Whenever the function is achieved in the body, they do have, or the higher level of the hormones, right, target endocrine gland. Let's say for example, if higher level of cortisols are there, they automatically do release, they inhibit the release of ACTH as well as the CRS, that is corticotrophin releasing hormone. So this is regarding RH and IH. A few more definitely you need to put in this category of neurohormones which are released from the hypothalamus, and that is nothing but oxytocin and the vasopressin. Right now, this oxytocin and vasopressins are actually released by uh, posterior part of the pituitary gland, right, which is called as a neurohypophysis. But remember that the synthesis of these two hormone, it is actually happening in the hypothalamus, and that's why we have considered in this list, right? So this will make total 9 hormones, neurohormones, that are released from the hypothalamus. The part of the hypothalamus which synthesizes oxytocin is supraoptic nucleus. So O refers to O. This is how I used to remember. You can definitely put any tricks, or as such also if you are able to remember, that is very good. But supraoptic nucleus is the one which synthesizes oxytocin. Paraventricular nucleus is the one which synthesizes vasopressin. So V for V, right? Here also it is, you can just easily. Vasopressin is also referred as a antidiuretic hormone, right? So these two are synthesized in hypothalamus, but they are released in the posterior pituitary gland. Fine. I hope it is clear now. So definitely it is a queen of endocrine orchestra. We have discussed that your anterior pituitary gland is definitely controlling all other endocrine glands, but then definitely control of the anterior pituitary gland is under influence of hypothalamus, right? So it is a very important regulatory system in nervous system, various functions that are relevant with the nervous system, that also we have summarized, and as a role, or you can say, of endocrine gland, definitely we have discussed. So total 9 hormones from the hypothalamus and 7 hormones from the pituitary gland. These are able to control this 16, right? 9 plus 7, 16 hormones play a very important role in, it is a regulation of virtual all aspects of growth, development, metabolism, homeostasis. This includes almost everything, right, that is happening inside our body. So this is the importance of hypothalamus that you can consider. So yes, it is referred as a master of master, or it is a master integrator gland, right? And it is receiving input from limbic system, cerebral cortex, thalamus, a part of brainstem that is referred as a RAS, right? So reticular activating system, which is responsible for consciousness. It is referred as a gateway of consciousness. This is responsible for emotions and behavior. This, you know, that is responsible for so many functions, right? Relevant with the sensory, motor, or integrative, right? All type of function and other organs. These all do give input to the hypothalamus, and all these neural impulse that are received by the hypothalamus, that actually changes the flow of RH and IH, and that is why you now must be able to correlate that if a person is under a painful or a stressful or an emotional experience or a situation, then definitely there will be a change in hypothalamic activity. There, if there is a change in hypothalamic activity, definitely there will be change in growth, metabolism, right, the homeostasis pattern, and that's why chances of disease, chances of abnormalities are very high, right? So those person who are having a stressful life, right, bad emotional experiences, right, so that do change their metabolic activity, that do change their, this development of the body, and that is how you, from this sentence now you are able to correlate. So with this we have completing the hypothalamus. This is a just a summary of endocrine function. Definitely it is synthesizing ADH and oxytocin, is also synthesizing some of the hormones which are RH and IH that do control this anterior pituitary gland, and also it is having some of the control of autonomic nervous system activity, So sympathetic flow to adrenal medulla is also under influence of the hypothalamus. So these are just an list of endocrine function which is maintained by, because which is regulated by hypothalamus. Fine. So moving toward the second important topic of our gland, because ultimately we are interested to learn the interrelationship between the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. Fine. So starting with the anatomy, it is called, it is also referred as hypophysis cerebri. So hypophysis refers to undergrowth, right? So you can just see that this is an undergrowth just beneath the hypothalamus, and cerebri because it is located within the brain, right? So cerebri here you need to understand in a way that it is located in a brain. So hypophysis cerebri gland, right? Hypophysis is a very important name, right, that you need to remember, right? And two very important part of the your pituitary gland will be on this basis. You call as an adenohypophysis and a neurohypophysis, right, which is very important segment. We'll discuss in later slide. Location, very important location. Many a times in MCQ like question it could be asked, right? So there you need to remember that it is located in a cavity of this sphenoid bone, right? So this is the, because that the fossa, right, where, right, and this is a depression, small sort of a depression, right? So that is called as a sella turcica. So sella turcica is located in sphenoid bone, right? There are many cranial bones, and one of the cranial bone is sphenoid. This sphenoid bone, in the basal cavity you have a depression, and this depression, right, this fossa, right, there you have the location. This is sella turcica, and there you have the location of the pituitary gland, right? So if someone asks you where pituitary gland is located, the location is in the sella turcica of the basal cavity of the sphenoid bone, right, that you call as a basosphenoid cavity. Size and shape, it is approximately of size of 1 to 1.5 centimeter. You can consider of size of an pea or size of an bean, right, big bean, right? So that is how the size and shape dimensions are being given. It is having attachment with an important structure, right? So anatomically it is connected with hypothalamus, and this connecting structure is called as a infundibulum, right? So it is a stalk like structure, right, which connects the pituitary gland with hypothalamus. That is called as a infundibulum. Now moving towards the internal anatomy, internal structure of the pituitary gland. It is divided in three different parts. Pars anterior, which is called as the anterior pituitary gland, which represents 75%, that is 3/4 of the total pituitary gland. Because it is located on the anterior side, that's why you call it as the anterior pituitary. Second part, that is called as a pars intermedia, or it is called as a mid pituitary. Now in human, definitely this part in the fetal development it atrophies. Atrophy means there is a gradual reduction of the size, right? That is called as atrophy. So gradually it atrophies and then it becomes non-functional. So mid pituitary is not that active, right, or it is non-functional in case of human. And third part is pars posterior, that is 1/4 part, 25% of the part which is located on the posterior side. Because it is on the posterior side, that's why called as a posterior pituitary gland, right? So this is a large part. This do contain some cells which are glandular, that means they are able to synthesize hormones. That's why it's a true endocrine part. This part, that is posterior part of the pituitary gland, it is not having any glandular structure, that means there is no endocrine gland. It is just having the axonal endings, right? This is a neuron. So this is cell body, these are dendrites, and this is axon. So this axon just ends here, and the terminal part of this axon are swollen. These swollen parts are actually referred as a herring body, and this is having a neurosecretory function. So because it is actually not synthesis, synthesis happens here, that is in the, because of that hypothalamus, but just a release of this hormone happens in the posterior pituitary. That's why posterior pituitary gland is not a true endocrine gland. Okay, it is the true endocrine gland part is this anterior pituitary. So this is how you can anatomically divide in neurohypophysis and adenohypophysis. As we have referred, that posterior part is having just neurons, no glands. That's why it is a part of neurohypophysis. Additionally, in fundibulum also it is having major neuronal tract, right? What we call as a hypophyseal pituitary tract, right, of the neurons. So there also only neurons are there. And tuber cinereum, that is an upper part of you can say that infundibulum, right? Upper part of the infundibulum is called as a tuber cinereum. It is also referred as a very important name is median eminence, right? So median eminence or tuber cinereum, infundibulum, and posterior pituitary lobe. This together forms neurohypophysis. Hypophysis, that means your pituitary gland, and one which is having neurons, that's why neurohypophysis. Similarly, adenohypophysis, one which is glandular in nature. So adenohypophysis is having three parts. One, definitely anterior pituitary, large part, 3/4, right? That is anterior pituitary lobe. Then is the mid pituitary one, right, which I have just shown here. It's quite thick part, it's very thin actually, but just to make it visible, that's why I've shown in this way. So it's a mid part. And also one, this collar like structure, right, just this collar like structures, that is called as a pars tuberalis. Tuber refers to a small tuber like structure, you can just see that, right, it looks like a tuber. So that's why pars tuberalis, mid pituitary, anterior pituitary, these are having endocrine function, that's why adenohypophysis. Again, hypophysis refers to undergrowth, that is pituitary gland. So adenohypophysis, neurohypophysis, this is how also anatomically you can divide. And many times if MCQ like this is been asked, which of the following is a part of adenohypophysis, which of the following is a part of neurohypophysis, you should be able to remember. So starting with the first one, the orchestra of the endocrine gland, what you call as a master gland, right? Definitely the control is master of master, right? In a comic sense, this is father, and hypothalamus is father of father, fine. So this is because it is controlling the all endocrine gland, right? That's why called as the orchestra of endocrine gland. So 75% of the total weight of the gland, and adeno refers to glandular part, which you discussed, and hypophysis refers to undergrowth. So that is pituitary, right? So because it is undergrowth beneath the hypothalamus, so this is pituitary, and a glandular part of pituitary gland is called as the adenohypophysis. As we have discussed earlier, that it is having two parts, that is pars distalis and pars tuberalis, right? So this is the pars tuberalis, and this is distally located. Distal means away, right? Say for example, my fingers are away from my shoulder, so that is distal. So pars distalis definitely include both your anterior pituitary and mid pituitary, right? So it is connected to hypothalamus by a very important portal system. Now there, what do we mean by portal system, right? First we need to understand the meaning. Portal system means normally what happens is you have arteries, right, larger diameter, then you have smaller diameter, that means artery will be converted to arterioles, further smaller, and definitely only endothelial cell part, that is your you can say that what you call as an capillaries, blood capillaries, right? So from artery, arterioles, capillary, these capillaries will merge to make venules, veins, and eventually it will meet the systemic circulation. This is how the circuit has been completed. But here in portal system, what happens is before this vein merges, or it empties its blood into the systemic circulation, uh, it creates one more plexus network, right? So there are two plexus of the capillaries, and that is what it makes its a portal system. There are two such portal system present in the human body. One is in the case of liver, right? So that is from the GI tract, which is called as the hepatic portal system. And second, which is present in the hypothalamus and hypophysis, that is pituitary gland. Because it is present in the hypophysis, that's why you call as a hypophyseal portal system. So let's check. This is hypothalamus, this is the pituitary part, right, anterior pituitary part. Here it has been shown as slightly been smaller region, right, actually it is quite big region, but just going through this part, you can just see that this is inflow of the blood, so artery, this is the primary plexus, so capillary blood. So this capillary bed now actually should convert it into vein, right? So here it is the case, but here it is a portal vein, right? Remember, it's a portal vein which will make one more network of the capillaries. So this is one more plexus. This is primary plexus. This is because the portal vein is there, that's why secondary plexus. And now it is moving towards the systemic circulation. So because it is making one more plexus, that's why you call it as a portal circulation. Now you must be having question that, sir, what is the need of such system? Why this blood circulation is going through a second network of the capillaries? Why there is bypass, right, from the systemic circulation, then it is going towards the systemic circulation? So the answer is, here there is a very important release of that hormones which you call as a RH and IH from the neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus. Now if these hormones, if they are directly being put into the, because this circulation, veins and into systemic circulation, they will be unnecessarily diluted, right? So you have total 5 liter of blood approximately in the body, so it will be diluted because these are released in nano quantities, right? Quantity is very small. So in that case, if they directly move to the circulation, right, then in that case there will be dilution of the hormones. Second thing, also there is a chance that these hormones will get degraded in the blood, and the time that is required to achieve the concentration for their effects into the anterior pituitary also will be very long, right? You can again understand with an example. Say for example, in classroom you are sitting with your friend, just one of the friend is very close a friend of you is sitting just beside you, and you want to pass a pen to him, but instead of passing the pen directly to him, you are giving to the one person who is sitting on the back side of you. That again moves to the one more bench and to the last bench, and from last bench again it moves to the left side, and then to the front bench, and then just at this sitting position where you are originally sitting, and then to the friend who is sitting near you. Now if this long process goes on, it will take time. Some of the mischievous students on the back side, they may produce damage to the pen, right? Or it may not reach, the pen may not reach to your friend actually, right, whom you want to convey. So to avoid such complication, wherever it is necessary, this type of bypass, this type of portal circulation are important, right? Similar thing you can consider for the hepatic circulation also, because the glucose, right, small molecules which are absorbed from the small intestine, right, they need to be processed by the liver, right? And if the systemic circulation receives such high level of this diffusible substances, definitely the process of converting into the useful substance by liver will be taking time. So that's why liver also you have portal circulation. In you can say hypothalamus and anterior pituitary, you also have the portal circulation. I hope now you are having a clear idea of what is portal circulation, right? So same thing is will be shown in the next slide also. Definitely this we have checked, so I'm not wasting, right? There are two sets of hormone which are released from the hypothalamus, RH and IH, and they are acting on the your cells of anterior pituitary gland by this a spatial network of capillaries, secondary plexus, and that plexus will allow it to act instantaneously without dilution. In a very minute quantity they will be able to act. So this is the portal circulation. Okay, so it is actually superior, you can say hypophyseal artery, right, which will make a primary plexus. Primary plexus will now get converted to veins, but these veins are actually portal vein. So again now they will be making one more network, one more plexus, and then finally eventually they will give anterior, right? So from superior hypophyseal artery supply, now it is anterior hypophyseal veins, and now it is toward the systemic circulation, right? If you are not able to remember the name of arteries and veins, do not worry, right? This is just for explanation that what is the route, how the RH and IH are delivered to the anterior pituitary part. This is what I have tried to show here. Fine. Chalo. So moving towards the types of anterior pituitary cells, very easy. And from these types of cell, you also will be able to remember the name of hormones of anterior pituitary gland, right? So very easy, starting with the first one, somatotroph, right? So the hormone which is released from somatotroph is somatotrophin. As I told you again, all anterior pituitary hormones, they are suffixed by trophin. So one which can stimulate somatic cell for the growth and development, that is somatotrophin, or in other words, simple words, you all know that it is a human growth hormone, or simply you can also call it as a growth hormone. Right? Now you can understand the name that I told you in the previous slide. The hormone from the hypothalamus which stimulates somatotrophin, that is GHRH, can be called as a somatokinin because it stimulates somatotrophin. Similarly, one which inhibits the somatotrophin, that is GHIH, that is called as a somatostatin because it inhibits the release of somatotrophin, right? So this is regarding somatotroph. Second one is thyrotroph, which leads to, like I said, release of TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Is also referred as a thyrotrophin. You just also make this word trophin word વાળા જેટલા પણ word છે એ બધા તમે સાથે સાથે જે છે યાદ રાખજો તો જ તમને સામે counterpart એનું RH વાળું યાદ રહેશે because if someone asks you what is TRH, you will be saying that it is a thyroid releasing hormone. It is not thyroid releasing hormone. TRH refers to thyrotrophin releasing hormone, right? Because it is stimulating the release of TSH or thyrotrophin. Third one, lactotroph. Definitely from this word you can now correlate, that is prolactin. So lactotroph releases prolactin. Fine. So again remember, these lactotrophs are not cells of mammary glands. Lactotroph are the cells of anterior pituitary. Fourth one is gonadotroph, which releases gonadotrophin, and this release is only after the age of puberty, right? So once the puberty starts, then and then gonadotrophin are released, right? So FSH and LH, these are two. LH is, in case of male, it is also referred as an ICSH, that is interstitial cell stimulating hormone. And the last one is C, you say that corticotroph, and corticotroph releases corticotrophin. Corticotrophin, you know that it is also referred as ACTH, that is adrenocorticotrophic hormone. One more hormone from the corticotroph, that is endorphins, right? So endorphins are endogenous substance. Endogenous means of your own body, and from this suffix you can guess that this is relevant to a spelling which you must have learned somewhere in your higher secondary, that is morphine, right? So morphine is an analgesic agent. Analgesic means one which reduces algesia. Algesia means pain. So morphine is analgesic, that is painkiller, right? So morphine, because it was found earlier, right? And from that, because the substances like morphine were found also in your body, endogenous morphine like substance, that's why you call it as endorphins. You must have learned that some of the person who are doing lots of meditation, right, lots of exercise, they have a higher level of tolerance with terms, with term of, because that pain tolerance or maybe stress tolerance, right? Why this pain tolerance is high? Because the release of endorphin in those person who are doing meditation, who are doing exercise, is more, and that's why this is a very important hormone, right? So some of the books, they do suggest only 6 hormones, that is up to ACTH, but actually there are 7 hormones from the anterior pituitary, and seventh one is this endogenous morphine like substance, which we'll call it as a endorphins. Okay, fine. So if you want to remember the name of 7 hormones, you can just make a short equation like thing. So first letter of each of this, flat PEG or flat PEG. So F refers to FSH, LH, ACTH, TSH, prolactin, endorphins, and growth hormone, right? This is just an way to remember it easily. Otherwise, if you are able to remember as such, then also it is very fine. So now we are going towards the name of hormone, their synonyms, if symbol, if they have been given, if any, what type of staining they do take. Most of the cells definitely will be taking basic stain, that's why basophil, but let's check that. And then what is the target endocrine gland, and what is the major effect that they produce. Starting with the first one, ACTH, adrenocorticotrophic hormone. It is also called as a corticotrophin. As I told you, all of these hormones of anterior pituitary, they are trophin in nature. They are tropic in nature because they do have an endocrine target, right? So one which is stimulating cortex part of adrenal gland, that's why adrenocorticotropic hormone. So name you can very easily understand, right? And from that, the target gland also you are able to, right, which part of adrenal gland, so it is cortex part. And because the major hormone, definitely the major hormone which are influenced by ACTH, they are glucocorticoids. Remember, mineralocorticoids are not under influence of ACTH. Mineralocorticoids are under the influence of renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, right? So it's actually RAS. So that is controlling mineralocorticoids. But glucocorticoids, definitely they are under influence of ACTH. Second one, beta endorphin or simply endorphins. Here also it is a basophil because it is taking basic diet. So one feel means to love, one which loves basic diet. That is why we call as a basophil structure, right? So this is just histological point of view, nothing else, right? Target definitely opioid receptor. Now again, here it is very important to understand this. OID refers to similar, and opium like receptor, right? Receptor which are sensitive towards opium chemical, that is again morphine, right? You must be knowing the source of the morphine, papaver somniferum, and that is actually a opium poppy plant. So morphine is isolated from opium poppy, and from that opium the receptors are called as a opioid because it is analgesic. As I told you, N refers to absent and analgesia refers to pain. So one which inhibits perception of pain, that is analgesic. So beta endorphins are natural analgesic agents of our body. Third one is the thyrotrophin or thyroid stimulating hormone. Again, they are basophilic in nature. Target gland, as you can just see that it is stimulating thyroid gland. But remember, they do stimulate the secretion of, you can say that, T3 and T4 only. Calcitriol are not under the influence of TSH. Calcitriol, their release is under control of the level of calcium in the blood. So it's a chemical signaling by which thyrocalcitriol is regulated, right? But T3 and T4, they are under influence of TSH. Fourth one is FSH, that will act on the gonad, and gonads also, say for example, if it is ovary, it is they are acting on the follicular cells of the ovary, right, which is the stroma, right, stromal cells present in the ovarian cortex. And in case of male, they are acting on the Sertoli cells which are present in the seminiferous tubules. There they are responsible for the growth of this reproductive system. Next one is also gonadotrophin, that is LH. In case of female, it is called as a luteinizing hormone because it acts on the gonads, and gonads, they will act on the corpus luteum. So from luteum it is luteinizing. And in ICSH, it is called as an interstitial cell stimulating hormone. So they act on the interstitial cells, which is cells of lady, right? So there it stimulates the testosterone, right? LH stimulates the release of progesterone and estrogen both, right? So they are also basophilic in nature. Target organ definitely is gonads, and they are responsible for the hormone of major sex hormone production in the gonads in both male as well as female. Next one is growth hormone, somatotrophin. So it is called as a STH also from somatotrophin, and GH definitely from the growth hormone. Yeah, these are having affinity for acidic diet. They love acidic diet. That's why acidophilic, right? Important for the histological characteristic. They are definitely having the target receptor all over the body, right? Growth hormone acts on most of the cells of your body, right? But then definitely major metabolic center and some of the other tissues, like say for example liver, adipose tissue, skeletal muscle, cartilages, right? These are all major target that you can consider. Bones, right? These are some major targets that you can consider for the growth hormone. They are having a very important metabolic, you can say, characteristic. That means they have anabolic effect on the proteins. They help in the growth of the, you can say, macromolecules of the protein, right? Protein synthesis pathway. But then to execute this anabolism of protein, they need some energy. So that is acquired by the breakdown of lipids and carbohydrates. So catabolic effect on the carbohydrate, catabolic effect on the lipids, but anabolic effect on the proteins, right? That is the metabolic actions for the growth hormone, right? And definitely up to an age, right, up to the age of 15 or 16, right, definitely the growth of the organ is promoted by under the influence of this growth hormone, right? So next, moving towards the next is prolactin, which is a lactogenic hormone, also referred as a PRL. Again, these are acidophilic, right, because they love acidic diet, and their main target is mammary glands, where they do stimulate the production of milk. So lactogenic hormone, okay. So this is the major effect. But also they can influence ovaries because they can inhibit the release of, because that estrogen and progesterone, right, they are having a very important, right, because of this very classical function. Prolactin, just after pregnancy, maybe after 3 to 4 months, they produces inhibition of menstrual cycle, because as long as the level of prolactin is high, you don't have the process of ovulation that occurs, right, so menstrual cycle do not occur, and that process is a very important characteristic event which we call as a lactational amenorrhea. Lactational, that is under the influence of lactation. A refers to absent and mano refers to menses. Rhoea refers to flow. So flow of menses is absent. That's you called as a amenorrhea. And because it is under the influence of lactation, you call it as a lactational amenorrhea. This is a natural method of family planning also, right, which you will learn somewhere in your reproductive system. So prolactin is having major two effects on the mammary glands as well as on the ovaries. Effect on mammary glands are particularly important, right? So summarizing the all details which you have learned, and now having a clear idea of what is the interrelationship between hypothalamus and anterior pituitary, there are 7 hormones, right, that are released as a RH or IH from the hypothalamus through this because of neurosecretory cells, and through this portal circulation, now they are received in the anterior pituitary gland, where they do control the release of 7 hormones. Here I have shown only 6 one. You can add one more, endorphins, right, from the CRH. So here you can just see that this one is stimulating, this one is inhibiting, right. Similarly here it is stimulating, it is inhibiting. One more to note that TRH also can stimulate the release of prolactin, right, so that also is an additional effect that you can consider. These all are trophic hormones, right? So this is prolactin, thyrotrophin, this is corticotrophin, somatotrophin, and these are gonadotrophins, right? They do have an endocrine target. So these are all endocrine targets. You can see that, where another set of the hormones is directly under the influence of these all hormones, and that's why you call it as a master gland. This is master of master gland, fine. And this definitely they will produce widespread metabolic effects, this effect on the synthesis of germ cells, right, effect on the mammary glands, right. So this is a very important and an easy way to remember overall organization of endocrine system in our body. I hope I'm making sense. I'm making this topic very clear to you, right? Fine. So now moving toward the last and toward the end of our chapter, that is the posterior pituitary hormone. We have already discussed why do we call it as a neurohypophysis, because it is just having the axonal terminal part of the neurons which are actually located in hypothalamus. The terminal part are only in the posterior pituitary part. So here you can just see that these are the nuclei, supraoptic nuclei. So O refers to O, that is oxytocin. Paraventricular, V refers to V, that is vasopressin or it is ADH. And this is the hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract, right? So these are all hypothalamic nuclei, right? And this nuclei definitely they are having some neurons which are ending in the posterior pituitary gland, right? The cells of the posterior pituitary gland, they are referred as the pituocytes, and this is hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. Okay, tract because these neurons are moving from this direction, from hypothalamus to the posterior pituitary. And hormones definitely we have learned two. So these are oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin from this nucleus. Okay, one more diagram that will help you in understanding. So these are nuclei, paraventricular nucleus, so that is ADH or vasopressin. Again, supraoptic nucleus, that is oxytocin. Okay, so this is the simple structure, and because this part, right, infundibulum, this median eminence, and this posterior pituitary, these three are having neurons. That's why you consider this as a part of neurohypophysis. So first hormone of the posterior pituitary gland, that is antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone is also called as a vasopressin, because once, say for example, we'll try to understand what is antidiuretic hormone or what are their effects. As it is named as, it is having antidiuretic action. So you need to understand what is diuresis. So cis refers to process. Uresis means process of urine formation, and when you call it as a diuresis, it is the formation of urine in a large quantity, right? Di refers to large. So production of large volume of urine is called as a diuresis. But remember that here what we are saying is a antidiuretic effect. The hormone is producing antidiuretic effect. So in that case, this hormone, once released from the posterior pituitary, it will go to distal convoluted tubule, which is a part of nephron, and more importantly, the prominent receptors are present in the collecting tubule. Collecting tubule also is a part of nephron. So their receptors for this hormone are present. Once this is expressed, right, once this is released, the collecting tubules start making a protein. That protein is called as, sorry, that protein is referred as aquaporin, right? So aqua refers to water, right? And porin, right? This is A actually. Sorry for the bad words, handwriting, not words actually. So porin, right? So in wherever you have, it refers to protein. Pore means a hole, right? That's why pore refers to hole. A protein is making a pore, that is a hole, and that is allowing the permeability for water. That's why you call it as aquaporin. So presence of this, because of that aquaporins, right? In because that this region of the nephron, right? That collecting tubules and distal canal, they do expresses aquaporin. Once you have expression of aquaporins, definitely now permeability to water will increase. So now there will be reabsorption of more and more water. If water is reabsorbed in blood, definitely in urine it will be reflected less. And if it is reflected less, definitely it is referred as an antidiuretic effect. Now, if you are reducing the water passage in the urine, definitely water is reabsorbed more in the blood. So blood volume will increase. So there are two effects. One is directly increase in blood volume. If blood volume increases, definitely blood pressure also will increase. Additionally, also remember that vasopressin also have receptors present on the blood vessel, and that is how they are also able to produce the constriction of blood vessel, vasoconstriction. So by these two mechanisms, they also regulate blood pressure. They increases blood pressure. One, by increasing blood volume, because the water is reabsorbed from the kidney, right? Second is direct effect on the blood vessel through vasopressin receptor, right? So now you can understand these two names. Antidiuretic hormone, because from its effect, it is antidiuretic effect, and this name is because it is a peptide which increases pressure in the blood vessel. So blood vessel, that's why vaso pressure, that's why vasopressin, right? One which increases blood pressure definitely is a vasopressin, right? So this is, you can say that overall effect. Large doses, as I told you, that it increases the arterial blood pressure. Also it is having influence on the ACTH secretion, right? It increases the secretion of ACTH, right? So these are the regulatory mechanism. Hypertonicity, right? Remember that there is presence of osmoreceptor in the, you can say that hypothalamus, and that are able to change the concentration of solute in the body fluid. So if there is an hypertonicity, that means solute concentration is more or water content is less, any of this will lead to hypertonicity, right? So this is sensed by osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus, and then it will lead to release of antidiuretic hormone. So now the volume will increase. Once the water content increases, this will be again leading to a normotonicity. Normotonicity means 300 milliosmol per liter in the blood, right? Similarly, if there is an hypovolumia, right? So amia refers to blood, this is volume, and hypo means less. Say for example, in accidental bleeding, or maybe say for example during surgery, right? So this is hypovolumia. Then also through baroreceptors. Baro means one which regulate the pressure. So baroreceptors, or maybe your renin angiotensin system, so angiotensin 2, this too also will send a message to hypothalamus, and further it can lead to increase in the release of antidiuretic hormone, right? Now you can have a very clear cut connection of the neuronal impulse or chemical signaling with an endocrine function in case of hypothalamus. Okay, fine. So this is dehydration, increase interstitial fluid osmotic pressure, hypertonicity. So there will be stimulation of osmoreceptors, and then there will be, because of that, secretion, right? There is a spelling mistake here, it has to be S. So secretion of ADH from the posterior pituitary gland. This will lead to two: decrease the perspiration and increase the water reabsorption. This is a main effect, right? By creating the water channels, what we call as an aquaporins. So that will lead to increased level of water in the blood, which will lead to normalization of the interstitial fluid osmotic pressure, and this will give a negative feedback message again to the osmoreceptor that now do not release ADH. Right? This is called as a negative feedback mechanism. So what are the abnormalities which are associated with the ADH secretion? If it is released in more amount, definitely it will lead a problem, right? So then in that case, blood pressure will be very high, right? Problem related to the urine formation also will happen. This is called as a CR, right? So CR full form is syndrome, right? S refers to syndrome of inappropriate secretion of ADH. Okay, so syndrome of inappropriate secretion of ADH. Normally it is because of CNS injury, right? So it's a rare endocrine disorder where there is a hyper secretion of ADH. Okay, next is a very important and more common to CR, right? There is a deficiency of ADH, that is called as a diabetes insipidus. Now diabetes, as you all know, it means polyuria. In case of diabetes mellitus also, it happens that urine frequency is more. Here also urine frequency is more, and that's why you are calling it as a diabetes. But here it is not because of the glucose level. In mellitus it is because of glucose level. It is in this insipidus, it is because of the nature of urine. The taste of urine becomes tasteless because there is a deficiency of antidiuretic hormone. Remember that this was producing antidiuretic effect. Now there is deficiency, so it will lead to deficiency of antidiuretic hormone will lead to diuresis, right? So it's negative becomes positive. Antidiuretic hormone, now you have deficiency of antidiuretic hormone, so it will lead to diuresis. So now because ADH is controlling the level of water only, remember it is not controlling the level of sodium and potassium. Solutes are not affected. So if ADH is absent, water reabsorption it will not happen. And in that case, if lots of water is removed without solute, that urine will not have solute, and it definitely will appear as an insipid or tasteless. Nobody taste is actually, right, just for on a lighter note, but definitely if you go on that perspective, it becomes tasteless. That's why the name is insipid, and that's why diabetes insipidus, right? So now the name has to be clear. So characterized by excessive thirst, because urination is very high, that's why thirst also will be more. Polyuria and polydipsia, right? That are polydipsia refers to more thirst. Excretion of large amount of severely diluted urine, and that's why we say that it is a tasteless urine, right? Because it is diluted urine, just water, no sodium or very less quantity of sodium, right? So that is how the name is been originated. There are two types of diabetes insipidus based on their pathology. If there is a damage to the hypothalamus part, so there is problem somewhere in the neurons, right? That's why the deficiency of ADH has occurred. So in that case, you call it as a neurogenic diabetes insipidus, because the origin is in the hypothalamus, is in the brain, in the neurons. Second case, the production of the ADH is normal, right? So there is no problem in hypothalamus. But once released, there is problem in nephron, that means receptors in the collecting tubules, right? Right, the major target is the receptors or the collecting tubules. So there is some problem in the receptors of the collecting tubules in the nephron. So genesis in the nephron, that's why nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. Okay, so this is regarding the ADH. With this we have completed ADH. Now moving towards oxytocin. There are two target tissues regarding the oxytocin. Major one, and which largely has been discussed, is normally which is more discussed, is uterus, right? And uterus also you have three layers: epimetrium, myometrium, and endometrium. So we are interested here. Myo refers to muscles, right? You must be knowing myology. Myology refers to study of muscles. So myo means muscles. Here it is not connected to bone, right? That's why the muscles which are present in uterus are referred as a smooth muscles. So smooth muscles of uterus, metrium refers to uterus. Smooth muscle of uterus, they are referred as a myometrium. Very thick layer of myometrium is present in the uterus, which is having expression of oxytocin, right? Very important. And second is mammary glands, lactiferous ducts also, they do express oxytocin receptors. So this is also having role in the lactation. But remember that milk synthesis production happens by the presence of the prolactin, while ejection of milk, release of milk, that is secretion, that is under influence of oxytocin. So here it is producing contraction of the smooth muscle, strong contraction of myometrium, which will help in the labor pain, right, which will help in the childbirth. And here it is responsible for ejection of milk, right? So milk let down hormone. If someone asks you milk synthesizing hormone, milk producing hormone, name will be prolactin. If someone asks you milk let down hormone, answer will be oxytocin, right? So it plays important role in two things: induction of labor, right? So wherever 3 trimesters are completed, right, in terms of in pregnancy there are 3 trimesters: first, second, and third. At the end of third trimester, fully developed fetus, right, it starts producing ejection reflexes, and that reflexes are initiated by the presence of two hormones, that is oxytocin and prostaglandin, right? And out of which oxytocin is very important. We'll check this positive feedback loop in the next slide, right? So induction of labor until the childbirth is been done, right? Then it continues to produce contraction in the myometrium. Second one is definitely ejection of milk during the lactation. Also it helps in the transportation of sperm. It facilitates the transportation of sperm in the non-pregnant female genital tract, right? So there also it is having some role. This is a positive feedback loop, rarest of the rare in the body. There are two such positive feedback loop are present in your body, and one of that we are going to discuss right now. So once oxytocin is, the release of oxytocin is induced by a mature fetus at the end of 9 months, this oxytocin will go to uterus in the myometrium. It starts producing contraction. Remember that as such oxytocin receptors are very less, but in presence of estrogen this receptor expression is increased manifold, right? Their expression is enhanced. So uterine contraction, this ultimately leads to dilatation of the receptors present in the cervix. Cervix is a narrow part which connects uterus with the vaginal cavity, right? So in between uterus and you can say it, vagina, right, there is a presence of a neck like structure, right? Cervix actually refers to neck, right? Here this region also we call it as a cervix, right? The vertebrae which are present in this region we call it as a cervical vertebrae, right? So in terms cervix refers to neck. So similar scenario you can consider for the female reproductive system also. The neck part which connects uterus with the vagina is called as a cervix. So more the contraction of uterus, more will be the dilatation of the cervix. And there is a presence of stretch receptors in the cervix, which will give message to hypothalamus that release more oxytocin, release more oxytocin. This will be until there is complete dilatation of cervix for the labor to occur, that is childbirth. Until the childbirth is done, this process will be positively stimulated, right? There will be release of oxytocin. This process, cervical dilatation, will send a message to the brain, release more oxytocin, right? And as I told you that this is present, this is enhanced, right? This action is enhanced in the presence of estrogen, right? The most active form of the estrogen in our body is estradiol, right? So this is a form of estrogen, nothing else. So this is a positive feedback loop for which oxytocin is asked many a times. Okay. So with this we have completed our chapter. The only last point, mid pituitary, as we have discussed, this is non-functional in the human. It gradually atrophies. Atrophy means decrease in the size of a cell of an organ, right? So that is called as atrophy. So atrophy, it atrophies during the fetal development. Some of them also say that some of the cells of this mid pituitary, they do migrate to anterior pituitary and they remain as a corticotroph. It's a debatable type of a theory, but then definitely that do contribute to the production of an hormone that is called as a MSH. MSH is a melanocyte stimulating hormone. As I told you, there is a very limited role of this hormone in human, but definitely it is released, it will act on the melanocytes. These are the cells present in the skin, and there they do promote the they do promote synthesis of a protein which is melanin. Remember, melanin is a skin pigment. Melatonin is a hormone produced by pineal gland, and melanin is a skin pigment produced by melanocytes. Okay, so it is under the influence of MSH. You must be knowing some of the animals who can change their color, and that is definitely because this MSH or the mid pituitary gland is very active. Say, for example, some of the reptiles, right? So, snakes, right? Some of these animals, they are able to change their color very effectively because of they are able to change the level of MSH as well as ACTH. Okay, so two abnormalities definitely. If it is an hyper release, definitely hyperpigmentation. If more MSH, more melanin, so hyperpigmentation. But in some case, genetic disorder, because there is a tyrosine pathway, right? There is a deficiency of some enzyme. Melanin synthesis cannot happen. Or if maybe say for example, if this loop is not working, then it will result in hypopigmentation. If melanin is less, skin will appear white. So alba refers to white, and that process is called as a albinism. So albinism is inability to synthesize melanin. Okay. So with this we have completed all details. It's a very long lecture that I have discussed. If been if any mistake has been there, please rectify me. Please give your feedback on my channel. You can also personally ask questions to my WhatsApp. Right. Thank you very much.